Hello and welcome to Career Center. I'm Kimberly White, Executive Director of the Career and Networking Center. Yes, you heard me right. We have changed our name. This new name and fresh look better reflects our dedication to job advancement and satisfaction. At the Career and Networking Center, we understand how important networking is, both in our professional and personal lives. And we wanted to make it part of our name as we continue to provide a place for individuals to connect with others in their job search and career development. Joining me today is soon-to-be retired Army Colonel Don Potoczny to talk about veterans and job search, and later we're going to talk about the importance of leadership, teamwork, and discipline. Don, welcome.
Thank you, Kim.
I'm so glad to have you here today because it's our new name, our new set. We're really excited about it.
It's just so exciting.
And, you know, new, fresh beginnings for you as well?
Completely fresh and new beginnings. We've been in the Army a very long time, and now we're starting our lives here. We've been here about a month, and It's really great to be somewhere that we expect to stay for a while. We've been moving every summer for a while now, and it's great to be able to build something and establish roots in a community.
Yeah, so, you know, the Army is near and dear to my heart, so we'll talk a little bit about that. You said you've been in the Army for a while. How long have you been in?
Quite a long time. On active duty since I graduated from Western Illinois in 1994.
Okay, all right, so you're going to be retiring here real soon. Tell me a little bit more about yourself. So you guys have moved around a lot, you and your wife?
That's right. So my wife Didem is from Turkey and became a citizen just a couple of years ago, came over to the U.S. in 2007. We have an 8-year-old son who began 3rd grade last week at Napier Elementary. And what brought us to Naperville, first of all, is District 203 school system, of course. And then the energy and shops of downtown. My wife loves that. And I love just the community here has so much potential. And the historical example of community leadership is really striking here.
Yeah, and I want to talk to you about that because when I was reading up on you, you talked about the community leadership, and that's so important. So we're definitely going to talk about that.
Okay.
So you just kind of picked Naperville because of the schools? Well, or more specifically, District 203, as you put it.
Yeah, Kim, as you know, Naperville is on every list of great places to live right now, and it's not overrated at all. Yeah. It certainly is an amazing place to live.
Good, good. All right, so let's talk about, and you just moved here from?
From Canada, where I was an exchange officer the last 2 years.
Okay.
I was stationed in the nation's capital, which is?
Ottawa.
Ottawa.
You got me on that earlier.
So, yeah, we spent 2 terrific years working with the Canadian Forces, and we could not have had a better time up there. The Canadians were so welcoming, and they treated us just like we were part of their family and part of their nation, and we learned a lot. My son was in French immersion school. That was a challenge for him, but your son is also fluent in French, so I'm sure at sometime Alexander will say, "Thank you, Papa, for making me learn French," but it's not now.
Yeah, I don't think I got the thank you till my son was about 22, so yeah, it does happen. So tell me about your time in the military. So I know you served some tours overseas.
That's right. 10 years in Korea, 4 different tours, 3 trips to Iraq. And really what attracted me to an Army career is the variety of assignments. No other profession has the variety of tasks and locations and people that you meet. I suppose if I had to, and as we're talking about job search, I do have to kind of explain the different things that I did in the Army. And I suppose my experience falls into 4 different bins. Project management. All Army officers are managing projects from day one. Yeah. So I've got my PMP certification. Human resources, the real power in organizations is personnel policy. When we want to affect change, that's a great place to start. I was able to serve in several senior HR roles in the Army, and I've got my senior HR certification. Primarily, though, I've served as the Chief of Staff in several large organizations, responsible not just for day-to-day operations, but also operational effectiveness improvement initiatives, changing structures, changing processes. And I suppose the most rewarding things that most of us do is leader development, mentoring young people, helping folks to find meaning at work, and to reach their potential.
Yeah, we're going to come back to that because I really want to talk about, I know when you and I met earlier, you shared some things with me about some things you did with your soldiers, and so I want to share that with our audience.
Well, and
yeah,
I
go
got
ahead.
just you say that as if we've been lifelong friends, and it feels that way.
It does.
We met last week,
Yeah.
and on Monday afternoon, she sends me an email. You want to be on TV? So here we are.
Yeah. No, you know what? But I thought about it, and you really had some great things. I wanted to talk, circle back and talk about veterans. So a few years ago, we had a show where we talked about veterans, and I know we have veterans in our community who are looking for work and in job search. And so as I thought more about it, I thought, Don would be a good person to have on to talk about that. So what are some challenges that you see that veterans face in job search?
The biggest challenge is translating our experience into words that everyone can
Understands,
get.
yeah.
Yeah. So to an Army person, being a Brigade S3 means a lot. That's a key position, and if you do that well, you've really demonstrated but civilians don't have any idea what that means.
Yeah. So what does an S3 mean? Tell me what that means.
Well, the S3 is in charge of operations.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
The S3 is often the center of gravity on a staff and controls the calendar and really runs things. So as you well know, the Army is full of acronyms and terms that aren't used anywhere else. And sometimes we can go too far with translating those terms, but helping folks to understand what we're talking about, and more importantly, understanding how other people think and live is a big challenge for us.
What are some skills that folks can in the military can share, like on day one as a civilian worker? Right?
Oh, so
translate those skills. Yeah.
Right. So what strengths do veterans bring? Well, the obvious thing is we are disciplined and reliable employees. So I know that I expect that many employers would be happy to have a workforce that always shows up on time and brings all their energy to work. Veterans are also values-based. That we inculcate all new soldiers, all service members into our organizations with a shared set of values. Loyalty, duty, selfless service,
Duty,
integrity, all that stuff. And it really becomes who we are. And a lot of organizations have realized that the importance of having a set of values that they ascribe to, that they promote, and we already understand what that means and the importance of integrity and so on. We also have experience with leadership that people don't get in other organizations necessarily. So we'll take a lieutenant right out of college and put them in charge of a 50-person platoon. And it might take a civilian counterpart many years to have that level of responsibility. We also have experience with teamwork. We are used to quickly building teams, diverse teams in challenging contexts. Most of us have served overseas and have led multinational teams, which brings its own challenges. We also, and the last thing I'd mention is that you've pointed out a few times, is we bring a level of energy that isn't often found. So.
Which is good, and we'll talk about that. I want to go back to when you were talking about the values base, the loyalty and integrity. Are there classes that you offer to soldiers? I mean, what do you do on day one with a new soldier that's coming into the Army?
Yeah, I don't know about day one, but certainly in
the first
our initial entry training, that's a fundamental piece of that training is getting them, bringing them to understand what it means to be a member of the profession of arms, and understanding what those values are and how we display those values consistently throughout our lives. But that's just our initial training. It would mean nothing if we never talked about it again. But in fact, every engagement, every discussion we have with a young soldier involves referring back to those values. And so a soldier maybe missteps, and as we talk through that corrective action, we always refer back to, hey, were we really displaying the level of duty that's appropriate in that situation? So it always gives us a almost an ideal of behavior that we can always refer back to.
Yeah, and these values are important because, you know, unlike in the civilian sector, right, you're going to be, you know, alongside these folks perhaps fighting in war, right?
That's true. And so integrity is the foundation of trust. And that's true. Soldiers, military members are faced with physical danger at times. And that's the obvious reason why we have to have a higher degree of trust. But everyone who works together understands the need to be able to trust each other.
Yeah.
In every job, every profession, trust is the foundation of teamwork. Yeah,
it's important to have for sure. So what should coworkers and supervisors know about veterans?
Well, first of all, we can be trusted, and soldiers and all veterans can be relied on to display those values. That is there. Don't believe the negative stereotypes. Very often, veteran issues that are in the news, those headlines, sometimes they don't portray soldiers in the best light. But those are the exceptions, and those issues. Some of those veterans' issues are brought to light, are made into headlines because they need to be addressed, and community leaders need to take those things seriously to ensure that we are taking care of those that have sacrificed so much. Also, though, if your coworker is if your new coworker is a veteran, understand that we are quick learners, but we don't always know what you mean when you say something or how to get things done. So we know how to get things done in our world, but in your office setting, in your work site, we may not understand exactly the right way to get things done.
Yeah, the learning curve is a little different, right?
It is.
It's there.
There's a lot to learn.
Yeah.
But we're used to that. We change jobs every year or two, so we're used to quickly becoming a member of the team. Fitting in is the first challenge for everyone, and we're pretty good at fitting in.
You mentioned earlier about teamwork, so I want to just touch on that just real quick. That's a really big piece in the Army too, to make sure there's great teamwork amongst one another.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a multiplier of effectiveness, and it might just be a personnel shop, it might be a cannon crew, but having crew drills and again that trust that allows you to know that person's going to do their part, and then you focus on your own.
All right, great. Well, up next, Don will share his thoughts on leadership and discipline in the Army. We'll be back after these public service announcements.
I'll never forget the day our landlord called and said, "Read your lease. No pets allowed." My owner tells him my dog ate the lease, but that didn't work. And now I'm stuck in a shelter. But this pit bull is ready for a new crib. I'm loving, loyal, and play well with others. So don't be intimidated by all my muscles, because the biggest one I have is my heart. That's right, I said it.
Sure, I look cute now, but when my owner lost his job, it was rough. I was living on the street, and one night, me and this Cocker Spaniel got into it so bad, I wound up looking like an ice cream cone. I cried a little bit, but thankfully I got rescued, so I'm running, I'm jumping, all back to my old self, and I'm ready to give unconditional love, even if you put a lampshade on my head.
Welcome back to Career Center. I am Kimberly White, and I am still joined by Colonel Don Potoczny. Thanks for staying with me.
It's my pleasure.
So I know we talked a little bit about your career in the military and some of the advice that you had around that. But now I want to talk about just advice for young people. Let's kind of go through. I know you have some specific things that you want to share for the younger generation.
No, and during the break we were just talking about a young man that came by the Career Center today looking for ways that he can improve his own career, and having a clear plan to do that. And the group was able to provide a whole lot of advice for that. But all of us should take the role of being a mentor seriously. And no matter what role we're in, there are young people in our lives that need, that could benefit from the advice that we've learned through our careers. I think that if I was to list some of those things, I'm more than happy to share with you. First of all, the bottom line is results matter. So young people who are thinking about what they need to do to get promoted, to be successful, well, you've got to produce for the organization. You've got to add value to what the organization is trying to do. On a very personal level, I always say to young folks, read more and write better. Reading is the easiest way to improve yourself professionally. And in almost every profession could benefit by nearly every book in the bookstore.
And I learned from when you and I met that you are a pretty voracious reader. You love to read.
I do love to read.
Yeah.
And really, my standard is a book a week. And I think for every professional, that's a good metric. And if you do that throughout your career, you'll keep up with what people, the latest things that people are saying, as well as have a firm foundation of all the different ideas that are out there.
And it doesn't have to be a 300-page book, right?
No.
For you, probably. But
Well, when I was a battalion commander, I had a officer professional development program for the officers in our battalion, and I made them all read a book every month and write a small paper. And one month...
we're back in school.
Well, we never leave school.
Yeah, this is true.
I told
something
someone
every day.
today, I got my last college degree 2 years ago, but it's not my last degree. And we should never think that our education is complete. Everyone should be a lifelong learner. But during I think it was over December, I had our officers read The Old Man and the Sea. A great story, very short book. But it's all about resilience and getting the job done, and what a person has to do to get out there and battle and come home at the end of the day.
Did you ever get any resistance from your soldiers and officers?
There was always a few grumblings.
Yeah.
There are a lot of old sayings about soldiers and complaining, but that leadership is listening when those grumblings have some worth and driving on when they don't. Yeah.
Well, and I would imagine you also heard from some who said, thanks. I mean, I learned.
They all said that at some
absolutely.
point.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you also, relationships need to be cultivated. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Right before, and this is about networking. And when earlier you asked about challenges that soldiers face. Well, when soldiers are trying to transition to an entirely different industry or location, like I am right now, you start from zero.
Yeah.
And it's kind of fun to be building a network from nothing and meeting this person who recommends that you meet this other person and so on. But when we're in a situation, relationships are all about doing favors for folks. And the unfortunate thing is to be building that network, asking for favors without anything to bring. But it's been interesting.
Yeah, and another one that you have on here is requirements must be met first.
Right, and this goes for everyone.
Yeah.
The boss is the boss, and the boss gets to set the priorities. And there are things that you want to do, but first you have to do things you have to do, and before you can do the things that you want to do. And the last thing on the list in front of us is to cultivate mentors. Some people think that we just stumble across mentors, and some people are lucky enough to have a boss who takes the time, but it's not just that. Cultivating mentors is something that junior folks can do from the beginning of their career, and identifying people who you like, who know things or whose character you want to emulate, and cultivating that relationship can be so helpful.
Do you, or should one limit themselves to one mentor? I would imagine.
Oh gosh, no. Our successful careers are built on
Absolutely.
the shoulders of giants, and one mentor after another. And you may have a mentor just for a few days as you start in a new organization. And a mentor doesn't have to be someone who's older. If that just means someone who knows things that you don't know and is willing to help you to learn.
Dare I ask you share a name of a mentor?
Oh my gosh.
You don't have to. I don't want to put you on the spot because, like you, I think it's important to have them, and I have several in my life
I'm
too.
sure.
So.
And more importantly, I assume that you and I are both mentors to many young people.
Absolutely. So let's talk about leadership style and how important leadership is both, in everyday life and also in work. Talk about that. Priorities, decision making, all of that.
Yeah, I think those are the two main things. In the Effective Executive, Peter Drucker lays it out that effective leadership is about making timely decisions. Decisions need to be made when they need to be made, not before or not after. Leaders must set clear priorities. The ideal is to have a clear vision and a passion for that vision. We talked about relationships a bit and trust. We build that trust through spending time together. Personally, I found that having one-to-one conversations scheduled every week with every direct report provides the framework to build all that. And then to some degree, it's about helping everyone to find meaning at work. Everyone wants to be a part of something important, and everyone can be. And good, effective leaders help people to do that. And finally, providing feedback, both negative and positive feedback. Everybody wants more feedback, but very few are willing to do that hard work to actually do it. Leadership isn't complicated. It's difficult, but it's not complicated.
Yeah. When you talk about feedback, so it's easy to give positive, right? Feedback. How do you?
It's not easy to give positive, and we know that.
It's easier to give positive versus, well, you didn't do so well today.
It's easier to find it, but it's not necessarily easier to. Well, it's easier to do it. It's not necessarily easy to. What do I need to say is. We assume that people are doing their jobs. We assume that a professional can run a meeting, can give a presentation, can do all the things that they're supposed to do. And so we don't provide them positive reinforcement when they do those things well.
Right.
And so negative reinforcement, as destructive as it can be when done poorly to a relationship and to trust, positive reinforcement, the opportunities are so much more prevalent.
Absolutely.
And that there's so much more commonplace that we don't do it as much as we should.
Yeah. One thing, just real quick, I want to touch on is we talked about community leadership. When you and I were talking earlier, the importance of community leadership, and you say you really recognize that since moving here to Naperville.
Take a walk around Naperville, and you can the historical example of community leadership is so striking. The big projects, the small projects. Clearly, for a long time, community leaders have stepped up, have worked together to make this a wonderful place to live. Moving around as much as we have around the world, we haven't been able to be part of something like that. So just in the couple of weeks that we've been here, I've been reaching out to all of them, and it's been great. The welcoming spirit has been warming, and I'm really looking forward to all the opportunities that Naperville has to offer. So last night I met with the Exchange Club, and they described all of the different projects that they're involved in to help people. The 4 Rotary clubs in town.
I'm inviting you to mine, so there you go.
And someone said, well, you go to the one that fits your schedule. Someone else said, no, they all have a different personality, so you have to see which one you fit.
But they're all great, I will say that.
And the VFW, and your husband is involved in the VFW, and I'm looking forward to helping out there as much as we can. And of course, the great Park District here.
Yeah, that's great.
My son starts flag football tonight, so I'll be helping out with that.
Oh, that's good. So, I didn't share this earlier, but when we moved here, Benny was doing his last stick in the time in the military, and we decided to stay here and retire because of some of the things that you said about Naperville. So, Don, we always hear, support our troops. We see the bumper stickers everywhere. What does that really mean? How do you feel about that?
Well, first of all, it doesn't mean that we want you to thank us for our service. We never know what to say in response to that. But I think in the context of job searches, it means that you give the veteran's resume that looks a little bit different than the others on your pile. You just give it a second look. And that young person who was an infantry squad leader, he knows how to lead a team. And that woman that was a G1 sergeant major, she knows what it means to be a successful senior HR manager. Soldiers know how to get things done.
And I think it goes back to what you said earlier about just the value. So you have that, right? Their resume may look a little different, but then you also are going to get that person that has, the discipline, knows teamwork, loyalty, integrity, all those things.
That's right. The smartest organizations understand that veterans are folks who have values and bring values to every organization and to wherever they go.
And I'm going to disregard what you said because I am going to thank you for your service. So
It was an honor.
all right. Thank you for joining me on this month's edition of Career Center. And to our television audience, if you're in job transition or looking for professional development, visit the Career and Networking Center at 1815 West Hill Road, Suite 900 in Naperville, or search us on the web at careernetworkingcenter.org. Thanks so much for watching.